Eric was a handsome man, tall, dark, and full of charm. His eyes sparkled like diamonds, and his smile could make any lady's heart skip a beat. Please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. He was the kind of man who could buy anything he wanted: mansions, fast cars, and even private jets. He owned so many companies, from tech firms to hotels and restaurants, that his bank account had more zeros than anyone could count. He was a billionaire in dollars, and to the world, he had it all. But there was one thing Eric didn't have: true love. Every woman he met seemed interested in one thing: his money. They didn't care about who he was, his dreams, or what made his heart beat fast. They only cared about the luxurious life they could live by his side. At first, Eric didn't mind. After all, he was used to being admired for his wealth. But with time, he grew tired. He longed for someone who loved him for the person he truly was, not for the name on his credit card. One day, while sitting alone in his massive mansion, Eric had an idea. What if I could find someone who loves me for me, he thought. But how would I know for sure? That's when it hit him: disguise. If he became someone else, someone without money, he could see who would still care for him. He could find out if there was a woman out there who would love him, not for the lifestyle, but for his heart. So, Eric decided to change his life for a while. He sold his luxury cars, packed his things, and moved to a small town where no one knew him. He took on the role of a poor shoemaker, an old, weathered man who sat by the street, fixing shoes for a living. He grew a beard and wore ragged clothes to complete the look, hoping that no one would recognize him. The first few days were hard. People would walk past him without a second glance, and he had to beg for food just like any other poor person on the street. It was humbling, but Eric didn't mind. He had a mission now, and that mission was to find true love. Then one afternoon, as Eric sat on his usual spot, fixing an old pair of sandals, a lady passed by. She was dressed in a simple dress, her hair tied up in a neat bun, and she carried a small basket of groceries. She was Mary, and she had no idea who Eric was. But what happened next took Eric by surprise. Mary stopped when she saw him. She didn't ignore him like everyone else. Instead, she smiled softly. "Excuse me, sir," she said, "are you okay?" Eric looked up, surprised by the kindness in her voice. He had expected pity, but she didn't look at him with judgment or disgust. "I'm fine, just working," he replied in a gruff voice, trying to play the part of the poor shoemaker. Mary nodded, then continued, "I was just thinking, you're sitting out here in the sun. Do you need something to eat? I can share my lunch with you." Eric's heart skipped a beat. It wasn't the food that shocked him, but the fact that she didn't care about his appearance or his situation. She just saw him as a person. He had never met anyone like her before. "Thank you, but I'm fine," Eric replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "I don't need much." Mary smiled again. "Okay then," she said, "but if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to ask." She walked away, but not before giving him a warm glance. Days went by, and Mary kept coming back. Every time she passed by, she'd stop to chat with him, ask how he was doing, and even share food. Eric was amazed by her kindness. She never treated him like a beggar or someone beneath her. She didn't ask him about his past or why he was poor. She just loved him for who he was in that moment. One evening, Eric sat outside his little shoemaker stall, lost in thought. He had been trying to figure out what he had gotten himself into. Was this real? Was Mary truly interested in him? Or was she just another kind soul helping a man down on his luck? As he pondered, Mary appeared again, but this time, there was something different in her eyes. She seemed nervous, almost shy. "Hi, Eric," she said, her voice softer than usual. Eric's heart raced. "You know my name?" he asked, surprised. He hadn't told her who he really was. She had just known him as the poor shoemaker. Mary hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I've been watching you for a while now," she said. "You're always so kind, even though you don't have much. You have a good heart, and that's all that matters to me." Eric's breath caught in his throat. Was this a joke? Was she playing him? He couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You really mean that?" he asked, his voice shaking slightly. "Yes," she nodded, her eyes full of sincerity. "I see the way you treat people, even when you have nothing. I see the good in you." Tears welled up in Eric's eyes. For the first time in years, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. But before he could say anything, Mary turned to leave, saying, "I have to go now, but I hope to see you again tomorrow." Eric watched her walk away, his mind racing. Could this be real? Could this be the true love he had been searching for? He had always thought that love could only come with wealth and luxury, but Mary had shown him something completely different. The next day, Eric decided he was going to tell her everything. He had to be honest with her, no more pretending. He had to know if she loved him for the person he truly was, not just the beggar he appeared to be. But what if she rejected him? What if the truth drove her away? As Eric sat at his shoemaker stall, waiting for Mary to return, his heart raced. He didn't know what was going to happen next, but he knew one thing for sure: this was the moment that would change everything. And as he waited, he couldn't help but wonder, would Mary still love him, even when she found out the truth? Eric sat on the worn wooden stool, his hands trembling slightly as he worked on an old pair of shoes. His mind wasn't on the shoes, though, it was on Mary. He thought about how kind she had been to him, how her eyes always sparkled with warmth and how she never looked at him with pity. He had never known a woman like her before, and now, he couldn't shake the feeling that she was everything he had been searching for. But what if, when he told her the truth, it was all gone? What if she walked away, disgusted by his wealth and the deception he had lived under? His thoughts were interrupted by a familiar voice. "Good morning, Eric." Mary's voice was gentle and full of affection, as always. She had walked up to him, holding a basket of fresh fruits. Her smile was soft and inviting, but this time, something in her eyes seemed different. There was a quiet uncertainty there, a hint of nervousness that didn't escape Eric's attention. He swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on him. "Mary," he said softly, looking up at her, "I need to talk to you. There's something important I need to tell you." She raised an eyebrow, her expression curious but still kind. "What's wrong, Eric? You look a bit serious today." Eric took a deep breath, his heart racing. I'm not who you think I am," he confessed. His voice shook slightly, but he continued. "I'm not really a poor shoemaker. I'm not some old man trying to get by. I've been living a lie, pretending to be someone I'm not, just to see if you'd still care for me." Mary's eyes widened in shock. She took a step back, as if the words had hit her harder than she expected. "What do you mean? You're not a shoemaker?" she asked, her voice suddenly shaky. Eric stood up, his heart pounding in his chest as he prepared to tell her everything. "I'm Eric. Eric Lawson," he said, his voice growing firmer. "I own businesses, a lot of them. I'm a billionaire, and I've been living a life full of wealth and luxury for years. I didn't want you to fall in love with me because of my money, so I decided to pretend. I became a beggar, a poor shoemaker, to see if you'd love me for who I really am." He could see the shock slowly spreading across Mary's face, and for a brief moment, Eric felt like he was going to lose her. He had never been this vulnerable before, and the fear of rejection was overwhelming. Mary stood there, frozen for a long moment. Then, slowly, she lowered her gaze, looking down at the ground, as if processing everything. Eric's heart twisted in his chest. This was it. This was where he'd find out if the love he thought they shared was real, or just some illusion. Finally, Mary looked up, and Eric could see the emotions swirling in her eyes. But instead of anger or disappointment, there was something else, something unexpected. She took a deep breath and smiled softly, her eyes softening. "Eric," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly, "I don't care about your money. I never did. I care about you. The person you are, not the man with all the wealth. I loved you for your kindness, for the way you treated people, for the way you cared about others. None of that has changed." Eric's breath caught in his throat. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. She loved him, not for his riches, but for the very things that made him human. He had been so afraid, so worried that the truth would scare her away, but here she was, standing before him, still full of love and warmth. "You're the one who showed me what true kindness is," she continued. "When I saw you on that street, fixing shoes and not asking for pity, I knew there was something special about you. I didn't need to know about your money or your businesses. I just needed to know who you were, deep inside. And that's the person I fell in love with." Tears welled up in Eric's eyes as he gazed at her, disbelief and gratitude flooding his heart. This wasn't a dream. This was real. "But why didn't you tell me earlier?" Mary asked softly, her voice filled with gentle curiosity. "Why go through all of this? Pretending to be someone else?" Eric sighed deeply, his voice cracking slightly as he explained. "Because I was afraid, Mary. Afraid that if you knew who I really was, you'd only love me for the wealth, the lifestyle. And I didn't want that. I wanted someone who could love me for me, not for what I have, but for who I am. I thought the only way to find that kind of love was to live without everything I've built." Mary smiled, a soft laugh escaping her lips. "Eric, true love doesn't come from money. It comes from the heart. And I saw your heart the moment I met you. I loved you, not because of what you have, but because of who you are." Eric's heart swelled with emotion, and in that moment, he knew he had found something far more valuable than all the money in the world. He had found someone who saw him for the man he truly was. Someone who loved him, not for his wealth, but for his soul. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the town, Eric reached out and took Mary's hand in his. He could feel her warmth, her love, and he knew this was the beginning of something beautiful. Something real. But as they stood there, hand in hand, Eric couldn't help but wonder, could they really build a life together, despite the difference in their worlds? Would the truth of his past come back to haunt them, or would their love be strong enough to overcome any obstacle that came their way? For now, though, all he could focus on was the way Mary's eyes shone with affection, and the way her hand fit perfectly in his. Whatever the future held, Eric knew one thing for sure: he had finally found the love he had always dreamed of. Eric and Mary stood there, hands intertwined, the world around them fading as they shared a quiet moment of connection. The sounds of the town seemed distant, as if all that mattered now was the bond they had just uncovered. But even as they embraced the warmth of their love, Eric knew that the journey ahead wouldn't be easy. His wealth and status were always going to be a part of him, an unavoidable part of his identity. But Mary's words echoed in his mind: true love comes from the heart. And for the first time, he truly understood the depth of that message. As days passed, Eric continued to live his life as the humble shoemaker. But with Mary by his side, things started to change in ways he had never expected. She made him realize that it wasn't the luxury or the money that made life worth living, it was the people, the real connections, and the honesty that mattered most. They began to spend more time together, walking through the streets hand in hand, laughing over simple meals, and sharing stories of their lives. Mary never once treated him differently, even though she knew the truth. She never asked for anything except his presence, his love, and his time. She never once reminded him of his past life, never demanded anything more than the affection he had shown her. One evening, as they walked home together after a quiet dinner in the local park, Eric found himself lost in his thoughts. "Mary," he said softly, "I've been thinking. I know I've been living a lie for so long, and now that I've found you, I don't want to lose you. But I wonder, if I tell the world who I really am, will it change things between us?" Mary looked up at him with a soft smile, her eyes reflecting the sincerity that had always drawn him to her. "Eric, the world doesn't matter. What matters is how we see each other. You've already given me what I need: honesty, kindness, and your heart. The rest is just noise. We don't need to prove anything to anyone. What we have is real, and nothing can change that." Eric's heart swelled with emotion. He felt as if the weight of the world had been lifted off his shoulders. He didn't need to hide anymore. For the first time in his life, he was truly free, free to love, free to be himself, and free to build a future with someone who loved him for everything he was, not just for what he could give. That night, as they sat beneath the stars, Eric made a vow to himself and to Mary. "I will never hide again," he promised. "I will be the man you've always seen me as, not the man the world wanted me to be." And Mary, with a tender smile, leaned in and kissed him on the cheek. "You've already proven everything I need to know. You're perfect just the way you are." In the weeks that followed, Eric and Mary built a life together, one that was simple, but filled with love. Eric began to open up to those around him, sharing his story and his truth with his closest friends and business partners. Some were surprised, others shocked, but none of it mattered. What mattered was that Eric had found his peace, and he had found the woman who loved him for who he truly was. Eric continued to run his businesses, but this time, he did it with a new sense of purpose. He started investing in causes that mattered to him, helping the less fortunate, supporting education for children, and making a difference in the lives of those who didn't have the luxury of wealth. His riches no longer felt like a burden, but rather a tool he could use to create change in the world. As for Mary, she remained his biggest supporter. She continued to work with him, side by side, as they navigated life's challenges. Together, they found joy in the small moments: a morning coffee shared on the porch, a walk through the park on a quiet evening, and the quiet, comforting presence of knowing they had each other. Years passed, and their love only grew stronger. They built a home together, not just of bricks and mortar, but of trust, understanding, and shared dreams. They laughed, they cried, and they faced life's hardships, always standing by each other. And as they grew older, they often looked back on that moment in the town square, when Eric had revealed his true self to Mary. It was the turning point that had changed everything, not just for Eric, but for both of them. Their story became a testament to the power of true love, a love that isn't built on wealth, status, or material things, but on the foundation of honesty, kindness, and mutual respect. They had learned that the most important thing in life wasn't how much money you had or the things you could buy, it was the people who loved you, truly and unconditionally, for who you were. And as Eric held Mary's hand, looking out at the horizon they had built together, he knew that the richest thing in his life wasn't his bank account, but the love they shared, a love that would last forever. Moral of the story: true love isn't about wealth or status. It's about connection, trust, and accepting each other for who we truly are. Sometimes, the greatest treasures in life come not from what we possess, but from the people we love and the love we give in return. Thanks for watching. Please like, share and subscribe.